Electric Haven hummed with the energy of ambition. The city was a buzzing hive of neon-lit buildings, startup hubs, and caffeine-fueled innovators. Among its streets, two lives moved on parallel tracks, seemingly worlds apart, but on a collision course. Lila Hart, a 27-year-old AI specialist, was one of the brightest minds in the tech world, known for her laser focus and perfectionism. Her latest project, Serenity, wasn't just another app. It was her lifeline to a dream. Designed to offer personalized mental health support, the app had a deeply personal origin. Her mother's battle with depression and eventual loss had left Lila with an unshakable determination to help others avoid the same pain. But Lila's perfectionism came with a price. Investors loved her idea, but some questioned her ability to work with others. "You need to prove this can scale," one investor had told her, leaving her frustrated and doubting her ability to secure the final funding she desperately needed. Across town, Rowan Blake, 29, worked alone in a soundproof studio, lost in the symphony of his own creation. As a sound designer, Rowan's genius was undeniable, but his reputation for being difficult preceded him. His current project, Soundscape Echoes, aimed to create immersive sound experiences that could evoke emotions as deeply as memories. To Rowan, sound wasn't just an art form, it was therapy. His mother, a music teacher, had introduced him to the emotional power of sound, a lesson he clung to after losing her and watching his family's finances crumble. Now, he created worlds of sound, each one an escape, but success felt just out of reach. Rowan's work was impressive, but like Lila, his biggest flaw was his refusal to compromise. Investors had told him the same thing over and over: "You need a team to take this further." The spark their paths crossed unexpectedly at TechBeat Conference, a premier event showcasing the best in innovation. Lila had a small booth tucked into a corner, a demo of Serenity loaded on her tablet. She rehearsed her pitch for the 100th time, nerves twisting in her stomach. "Personalized AI?" she murmured to herself, brushing a strand of hair out of her face. "Mental health care that adapts to your needs." A commotion nearby caught her attention. Turning, she spotted Rowan leaning against the booth next to hers, gesturing animatedly as he explained his project to a small crowd. His confidence grated on her nerves, but she couldn't deny his charisma. As the crowd dispersed, Lila caught a glimpse of the Soundscape Echoes logo. The name jogged a memory. Years ago, she had worked on a hackathon team with someone named Rowan Blake. A headache of a teammate. Couldn't be him. Could it? "Lila Hart?" Rowan said suddenly, his voice laced with amusement. "I thought that was you." Her stomach sank. It was him. "You remember me?" she asked flatly. "How could I forget? You spent the whole hackathon lecturing me about structure and timelines. And you spent the whole time ignoring them," she shot back. Their banter drew the attention of nearby attendees, who chuckled at the obvious tension between them. Rowan smirked, clearly enjoying himself, but Lila quickly turned back to her booth. She didn't have time for distractions, especially not from someone like him. The call to action as the conference unfolded, an organizer approached both Lila and Rowan with a surprising proposition. "Your projects have complementary goals," the organizer said. "What if you combine Serenity and Soundscape Echoes for the final showcase? AI-driven empathy paired with immersive sound could be groundbreaking." Lila and Rowan exchanged wary looks. "No offense," Rowan said, "but we don't exactly work well together." "You don't work well with anyone," Lila retorted. The organizer sighed. "Look, this is a unique opportunity. Think about it. The exposure alone could be career-changing." Later that evening, Lila sat in her hotel room, staring at her tablet. The thought of working with Rowan was aggravating, but the organizer had a point. If combining their projects could convince investors that Serenity had broader applications, it might be worth the headache. The next morning, she found herself standing in front of Rowan's booth. "Let's do it," she said without preamble. Rowan raised an eyebrow. "You sure? You might regret it." "I already do," she replied. "But we both need this. Let's just get it done." And with that, their reluctant partnership began. Tension and intrigue, the early days of their collaboration were tense. Lila's need for structure clashed with Rowan's improvisational style. Every decision felt like a battle, from which features to prioritize to how the prototype should look. "This isn't a jazz band, Rowan," Lila snapped during one particularly heated argument. "And this isn't a calculus problem, Lila," Rowan fired back. Despite their differences, there were moments that hinted at a deeper connection. During a brainstorming session, Rowan played an audio file he had created, a layered soundscape of waves, wind, and faint piano notes. "It's calming," Lila admitted, surprised by how it soothed her frayed nerves. "It's what my mom used to play for me," Rowan said quietly, a rare moment of vulnerability. Lila looked at him, startled by the honesty in his voice. It was the first time she saw a crack in his confident facade, and it made her wonder what else he was hiding. The partnership between Lila and Rowan began with friction, an unsteady arrangement where their clashing styles left little room for agreement. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, their project slowly took shape, and so did something neither of them had anticipated. An unspoken connection that deepened with each late-night work session. Early stages of connection, the first weeks were nothing short of exhausting. Lila worked at her desk with spreadsheets and flowcharts meticulously planned to the last detail. Rowan, meanwhile, sprawled across a couch, headphones on, creating sound layers without so much as a single note on paper. "You could at least pretend to have a process," Lila muttered, glancing at him. "I do have a process," Rowan said, not bothering to look up. "It's called intuition. Maybe you should try it sometime." Their arguments became routine, but amid the tension, they began to find a rhythm. Lila learned to trust Rowan's instincts when it came to creating emotional resonance, while Rowan begrudgingly admitted that her structure gave their project a foundation it had lacked. One evening, as they tested a prototype, Rowan played a soundscape he'd been working on, a blend of soft chimes, low frequencies, and faint whispers. "It's supposed to evoke memory," he explained. "Not just the memory itself, but how it feels to remember something important." Lila closed her eyes as the sounds enveloped her. When she opened them again, her expression had softened. "It's beautiful," she admitted. Rowan grinned. "Mark the date. Lila heart like something I made." "Don't get used to it," she said, but the corners of her mouth twitched upward. Supporting characters, the people in their lives, couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in Lila and Rowan as their collaboration deepened. Maya, Lila's best friend and confidant, was quick to pick up on the dynamic. "You're smiling more," she observed one evening over coffee. "Don't tell me it's because of him." "Rowan," Lila snorted. "He's insufferable." "But," Maya prompted. Lila hesitated, then shrugged. "But he's good at what he does, and when we're not arguing, it's almost fun." Evan, Rowan's younger brother, teased him relentlessly. "You've been talking about this Lila a lot," Evan said, raising an eyebrow. "She's a work partner," Rowan insisted. "Sure she is," Evan replied, smirking. "I bet you roll your eyes at her spreadsheets just to hide how impressed you are." Challenges arise. The more progress they made on the project, the more intense the pressure became. During a particularly high-stakes meeting with potential investors, Lila presented their prototype with her usual polished confidence. But when a glitch caused the AI's voice to stutter, she froze. Rowan stepped in without missing a beat. "The beauty of this system," he said, "is that it's designed to adapt. Glitches like this are opportunities for improvement, not failures." His quick thinking saved the pitch, but afterward, Lila was furious. "You should have told me about the glitch," she snapped. "And you should have trusted me to handle it," Rowan shot back. Their argument spiraled, each blaming the other for the mishap. But later that night, as they worked silently in the studio, Rowan slid a cup of coffee toward Lila without a word. It wasn't an apology, but it was a peace offering. The rift grows. The turning point came when Rowan received a tempting offer from a major tech firm to sell his sound design software. The catch? He'd have to walk away from the project with Lila. At the same time, Lila was approached by a prominent investor who expressed doubts about Rowan's reliability. "He's talented," the investor said, "but freelancers like him aren't long-term players. Are you sure he's the right partner?" Neither Lila nor Rowan shared these developments with each other, but the secrecy began to take a toll. Symbolic moments despite the tension, moments of vulnerability brought them closer. One night, Rowan showed Lila an audio file he had created for his late mother, a mix of piano notes and her favorite songs woven into a single, haunting melody. "She used to play this for us when things got hard," Rowan said softly. "I wanted to remember how it felt to be safe." Lila listened, her throat tightening. "She'd be proud of you," she said. Lila, in turn, shared the origins of Serenity. She opened up about her mother's battle with depression and how the project was her way of helping others find support. "You're trying to fix something you couldn't control," Rowan said gently. "That's brave." "No," Lila replied, her voice shaking. "It's selfish. I just don't want anyone else to feel as helpless as I did." In those moments, their walls began to crumble. Intrigue builds as the final showcase approached. The unspoken doubts between them came to a head. During a late-night work session, Lila confronted Rowan about his recent distance. "Are you planning to leave?" she asked, her voice trembling. Rowan hesitated, torn between his loyalty to the project and the promise of financial stability for his family. "What if I am?" he said finally. "Would it really matter?" Lila stared at him, hurt flashing in her eyes. "Of course it would matter." "Why?" Rowan asked, his frustration spilling over. "You don't trust me. You've been waiting for me to screw this up from the start." "That's not true," Lila shot back. "I've been waiting for you to believe in this as much as I do." Their argument left them both reeling, unsure if their partnership or their connection could survive the weight of their insecurities. The grand hall of the Tech Beat showcase buzzed with energy, the air thick with anticipation. Investors, journalists, and competitors filled the room, their voices a chaotic hum as they awaited the final presentations. The culmination of months of work had brought Lila and Rowan to this moment, but neither felt ready. Backstage, Lila paced nervously, the prototype in her hands. Every feature had been tested and retested, but the weight of potential failure pressed down on her. Rowan leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, his usual calm demeanor masking the storm brewing inside him. "You're quiet," Lila said, her voice sharp with tension. "Just thinking," Rowan replied, his tone distant. Lila hesitated, sensing the shift in his mood. "About the project? Or something else?" Rowan's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, a staff member appeared. "You're up next." They exchanged a look, one filled with unspoken doubts, and stepped onto the stage. The moment of truth, the spotlight was blinding, the sea of faces before them a blur. Lila began the presentation, her voice steady despite the nerves coursing through her. She outlined the project's purpose, explaining how Serenity and soundscape echoes work together to create an immersive, AI-driven therapeutic experience. Rowan took over, demonstrating how the soundscapes adapted in real time to user emotions, his usual charisma on full display. The audience seemed captivated, leaning forward as the presentation reached its climax. But as Rowan handed the prototype to Lila for the final demonstration, disaster struck. The device stuttered, its screen flickering before going dark. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Lila's heart plummeted, panic gripping her. Rowan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "This is why we designed the system to adapt." He opened the device, replacing a faulty component with the precision of someone who had done it 100 times before. When the screen lit up again, the audience erupted into applause, but the damage was done. Backstage, the tension between Lila and Rowan boiled over. "The breaking point, you should have told me the hardware wasn't stable," Lila snapped as soon as they were out of earshot. "I fixed it, didn't I?" Rowan shot back. "That's not the point." Lila's voice cracked with frustration. "You can't just wing it in front of investors. And you can't control everything, Lila," Rowan countered. Not every problem has a flowchart solution. Their voices rose, each blaming the other for the mishap. Finally, Rowan threw up his hands. "This is exactly why I didn't tell you about the offer," he said, the words spilling out before he could stop them. Lila froze. "What offer?" Rowan hesitated, but it was too late to backtrack. "A tech firm wants to buy my sound design software. They're offering enough to take care of my family's debts, but I'd have to leave the project." Lila stared at him, her chest tightening. "So you were planning to leave?" "I don't know," Rowan admitted, his voice quieter now. "But it feels like you've been waiting for me to mess this up anyway. Maybe it's better if I just step away." Tears stung Lila's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "If you think leaving is the answer, then go. But don't pretend this is about me not trusting you. You've been running from this from the start." Rowan looked at her, his expression torn, but he said nothing. Without another word, he turned and walked away. The turning point, the hours after the showcase, passed in a blur. Lila sat in her apartment, staring at the prototype on her desk. The device felt heavier than ever, a reminder of everything they had built and everything they had lost. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Maya. "Whatever's happening, don't let fear make the decision for you. Talk to him." Meanwhile, Rowan sat in his studio, the sound of his own heartbeat drowning out the music he usually sought solace in. Evan's words echoed in his mind. "She brings out the best in you. Don't let your fear ruin that." Finally, as the city settled into the quiet of night, Lila made a decision. The revelation she arrived at Rowan's studio, her nerves jangling as she knocked on the door. Rowan opened it, surprise flickering across his face. "I don't care about the offer," Lila said before he could speak. "I care about this, about us." Rowan stepped aside, letting her in. "I thought you didn't trust me," he said, his voice heavy with doubt. "I didn't trust myself," Lila admitted. "I was scared. Scared of failing. Scared of losing what we've built. But the truth is, I've never believed in anything more than this project, or you." Rowan's shoulders sagged as if a weight had been lifted. "I'm scared too," he said. "Scared of letting you down. Scared of letting myself down. But walking away, that would be the biggest failure of all." Lila reached for his hand, her voice steady. "Then let's stop running. Let's fight for this together." The intrigue revealed as they talked through the night. Rowan finally shared the full story behind his hesitation. "My mom's music used to keep our family together," he said. "After we lost her, it felt like everything fell apart. The debts, the shop, my own dreams. I was afraid to put my faith in anything again. But you made me believe in something. That scares me more than anything." Lila squeezed his hand. "And you made me believe it's okay to let go, to take risks, to trust someone else." The weight of their shared fears melted into something lighter. Hope. The final test the next day, they returned to TechBeat for the judge's decision. As the finalists were announced, Lila and Rowan held their breath. When their names were called as the winners, the room erupted into applause. Lila turned to Rowan, her eyes shining. "We did it." "No," Rowan said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "We did it." The glow of the TechBeat Showcase trophy sat on the table in front of them, a gleaming reminder of everything they had worked for. The applause still echoed in their ears, but for Lila and Rowan, the moment felt more fragile than triumphant. In the aftermath of their victory, the world moved fast. Investors flooded them with offers, media outlets clamored for interviews, and their inboxes were filled with congratulatory messages. Yet amidst the chaos, Lila and Rowan found themselves quietly retreating to the small studio where it had all begun. The morning after the win, Lila sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through sketches of future updates for Serenity. Across the room, Rowan adjusted the speakers, playing snippets of the soundscapes that had wowed the showcase audience. "You ever think about how we got here?" Rowan asked, breaking the silence. Lila looked up, smiling faintly. "You mean the part where we argued for 3 months straight?" Rowan chuckled. "And still managed to build something that works." Their laughter faded into a comfortable silence, but Lila's mind lingered on the unspoken question beneath Rowan's words. Was it worth it? Unresolved tensions despite their success. Not everything felt settled. Lila couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something about Rowan's decision to stay, about their partnership, was still unresolved. She knew he had turned down the offer from the tech firm, but the reasons behind his choice remained unclear. One evening, as they worked late into the night, she finally broached the topic. "Rowan," she said hesitantly, "why did you turn down that offer?" Rowan paused, his hands stilling over the soundboard. "Does it matter?" "It does to me," Lila said softly. "I need to know." Rowan sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I told you before, I've spent most of my life running from things. From my family's problems, from my own dreams. That offer was an easy way out, but it wouldn't have meant anything without this. Without you." Lila felt her chest tighten, his words settling into a place she hadn't realized was empty. "I don't want you to ever feel like you're stuck here," she said. "You're not trapped, Rowan. You're choosing to be here, right?" Rowan met her gaze, his expression serious but warm. "I am. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." A step back to move forward in the weeks that followed, Lila and Rowan threw themselves into preparing for the next phase of their project. Their schedules were grueling, filled with meetings, pitches, and development milestones. But amidst the whirlwind, they began to realize they needed more than success. They needed balance. One Saturday morning, Rowan showed up at Lila's apartment with 2 steaming cups of coffee and a mischievous grin. "What's this?" Lila asked, eyeing him suspiciously. "A day off," Rowan declared. "We don't have time for a day off," Lila protested, even as Rowan pulled her coat off the rack. "Exactly," he said, "which is why we need it." Reluctantly, Lila let herself be dragged away from her laptop. Rowan led her to the edge of the city, to a park filled with winding trails and quiet clearings. "This is where I go when I need to think," he said, gesturing to a fallen log by a small stream. They sat together, the sound of running water filling the silence. "You know," Lila said after a while, "I don't think I've let myself breathe since we started this." Rowan smiled. "You're not alone. I've spent so much time trying to prove I could do something great that I forgot why I wanted to in the first place." Lila turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "So why did you want to?" Rowan hesitated, then said, "Because sound gave me hope when nothing else did, and I guess I wanted to give that to someone else." Lila's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "You already have," she said. An unexpected setback just when it seemed like everything was falling into place. A new challenge arose. During a key investor demo, an updated version of the prototype malfunctioned, erasing weeks of progress. The investors, while sympathetic, expressed doubts about their ability to deliver on schedule. The failure hit Lila hard. She retreated into herself, working late into the night to fix the problem, her perfectionism taking over. Rowan, sensing her growing frustration, tried to reach out, but she pushed him away. "You don't understand," she snapped during one particularly tense exchange. "Then help me understand," Rowan said, his voice calm but firm. "I can't fail this, Rowan," Lila said, her voice cracking. "If I do, it'll feel like I've failed her." Rowan stepped closer, his tone softening. "You mean your mom?" Lila nodded, tears spilling over. "I've spent so long trying to make something that would have helped her, and if I can't even get it right—" Rowan pulled her into a hug, his arms steady around her. "Lila, you're not failing her. You're honoring her, and you don't have to do it alone." The final breakthrough with renewed determination, they worked together to fix the prototype. Rowan's expertise in sound design brought new layers of emotional depth to the system, while Lila's AI algorithms ensured the device could adapt seamlessly to user needs. By the time they presented the updated version to the investors, it was flawless. The room erupted into applause, but the real victory was the pride they felt in each other, and in what they had created together. The intrigue revealed as the dust settled. Rowan shared a final truth that had been weighing on him. "There's something I haven't told you," he said one evening as they packed up the studio. Lila looked at him, her brow furrowed. "What is it?" "The soundscape I used for the demo," Rowan said. "It was based on a lullaby my mom used to sing to us. I never thought anyone would hear it, but when I saw how it worked with Serenity, it felt right." Lila's eyes softened. "Rowan, that's beautiful." "It felt like a way to say goodbye," Rowan admitted, "and to move forward." Lila reached for his hand, her voice steady. "Then let's move forward together." Conclusion. The sound of trust months later, as their technology rolled out to clinics and users around the world, Lila and Rowan found themselves standing on the same stage where their journey had begun. "This isn't just a product," Lila said, addressing the audience. "It's proof that empathy and innovation can change lives, and that the best creations," Rowan added, "are built on trust." The applause was thunderous, but as they stepped off the stage, it wasn't the accolades that mattered. It was the partnership and the love they had forged. Moral of the story: in the end, Lila and Rowan's journey wasn't just about building a groundbreaking device. It was about learning to let go of fear, to trust in each other's strengths, and to find meaning in the connections they shared. Because the greatest innovations don't come from technology alone. They come from the courage to believe in something bigger than yourself.